Welcome to Bamfordrose, and it's forum chat time. This week it's a quick fire roundup of a load of questions that I've taken off all of our videos over the last few weeks. The first question is on a DB9 with 19-inch rims. Can you run the larger profile on the rear? So standard size is going to be 275/35, 19 on the rear, and this question is, can you run a 40 profile on the rear? I have seen one car that's gone up a profile size and it looks super odd. You wouldn't expect it to, but it does. So I'd avoid that, I wouldn't do that. Will it affect traction control? Right, well, traction control is just stopping wheel slip from too much power. What profile you've got on your tyre isn't really going to affect that. It might affect dynamic stability control because the profile of the tyre is a bit taller, there's probably a bit more give in the tyre. So it wouldn't affect traction, but it might affect dynamic stability control. Next question on that is, do the 2010 to 2012 470 horsepower DB9 cars have different gearing in the gearbox or diff, as they are rated at 191 mph, and the 2013 plus 510 horsepower cars are rated at 183? Yeah, it's a funny question. I think that that's more to do with the coefficient of drag. The earlier cars are more slippy and they go faster, and despite lower engine power, they go faster than the cars with higher engine power. And now these cars have gone a bit angular, they're less slippy, and they don't cut through the air as well. It's more to do with aerodynamics than anything else. Next question, can I do a video on wheel spacers? I'd only ever fit a 5mm wheel spacer as maximum. And then if you were on the older 22 wheel nut, I'd go to a 21mm wheel nut, which has got the thread cut all the way to the end of the wheel nut. So you get about 3 extra threads more purchase on the stud. Don't like any of these wheel spacers that bolt onto the standard stud and then they've got their own stud coming out of them because they've got like a 15 or 20mm spaced section to it. I think that compromises geometry and puts loading on components which shouldn't be. Can the same Vanquish gearbox update also be applied to DBS? This was from the Rapide video where we took the Vanquish S calibration and put it across to the Rapide. So that was a 8-speed ZF file going into an 8-speed ZF car. So the Vanquish S 8-speed going into Rapide S 8-speed to make the Rapide drive the same as the Vanquish. There are some subtle differences. The Rapide is a bit lazier. So can the same gearbox be applied to DBS? I presume that means the older 6-speed auto DBS, which in that range of 6-speed gearboxes is already the most aggressive cal. So you couldn't get a DB9 or a Virage cal and put it in DBS and make it any better. In actual fact, we take the DBS cal and put it in all the others, much like we take the Vanquish cal and put that in the others. Yeah, someone says that the Rapide S shifts very nicely. Yeah, it does. It suits the car. It's lazy, it's GT cruisery. If you just wanted the car to be a bit more sprightly, and you know that the 8-speed gearbox is essentially the same as what's in the Vanquish, and the engine is essentially the same as what's in the Vanquish, and why can't you drive the Rapide in the same way that the Vanquish drives, then you feel like you're missing something. So it's a case of, if you don't know what you haven't got, you don't know you're missing it. Yeah, if that Rapide drives nice for you, then all is good with the world. On the same video, someone there says, would you not achieve the same results if you popped it into sports mode? Well, sports mode is a little bit more sprightlier than non-sport mode, but there is a distinct difference on how the Vanquish S drives in terms of upshifts and downshifts compared to the Rapide. So I'd probably consider the Vanquish S another step on from the sport mode, if you like. Next question, same video, and I think I've just touched on this before. So yeah, you could take the 6-speed DBS calibration and put it in the Rapide, 6-speed, and you'd get that lazy repeat 6-speed driving like DBS. Next comment is from someone where the video was about whatever garage you were working with being flexible to keep the car on the road, especially in the current climate of Aston Martin suffering massive part shortages. They said they took the car to HWM Walton-on-Thames for servicing, and they did a few pragmatic fixes for them and it all worked out well. Yeah, great, that's really good. HWM have got a great reputation all round, and I'm not surprised that they behaved in that way. Probably helps that they're independent, not part of a bigger PLC. Probably you'll find it's the bigger PLCs that operate in that very restrictive way. That's why the likes of HWM and Bristol are regarded as probably the best couple of dealers in the country. This comment is about what I said about classic Vanquish having a manual gearbox conversion. The commenter writes, the comments about manual conversion were really stretching it a bit. The theatre of pulling paddles, gear changes, destabilises the cars in bends, ? Yes, it does. I'd only be interested in one with a manual now that the classic Vantages are out of reach, and I wouldn't care if the gear lever was mounted on the roof. Well, I just repeat what I've said in that video. Ergonomically, that gear lever is just in the wrong position. You cannot rest your arm comfortably on the center console to change gear. It's just uncomfortable, and you feel that in your elbow, you feel it in your shoulder, and you have to live with this on a daily basis. There is theatre in opening the door handle of the car and you hear a pump whir. Then when you sit in the car, you pull a paddle, you hear a pump whir, and then you get a red light that enables you to press start, and then the engine roars into life. Yeah, there's theatre with that. When you sit in the manual car and you have to depress the clutch with your left leg, and maybe the spring has gone a bit dry and it creaks, all that theatre is gone and you feel like you're in the cheap seat. So yeah, I'd stand by the comment of there being theatre involved in the startup process of Vanquish, and yes, you do feel like you're missing something if the Vanquish is manual. And then there's disbelief about my comment that the car is destabilised in the bends. Well, yeah, this is what speed match shifts are all about, matching engine speed with gearbox speed, and it gives you a smooth shift. If you press the clutch pedal down to change gear halfway through a long swooping bend at speed, it unsettles the car. But I think the key in these comments is where the commenter has written, I'd only be interested in one with a manual. Right, so that infers that you haven't actually driven one or don't own one, so you're making comments not based on any of your own first-hand experience. This is just your thoughts. Next question. Hi, I've got an 11 plate M420 Vantage. TPMS sensors are going bad, and although they're still reading tyre pressure, the yellow tyre light is illuminated. Yeah, this is probably because they're getting down to a minimum battery voltage and it's just giving you an early warning that they're about to go. But nonetheless, they're still working all fine. I heard they're plug and play in these models. Yeah, you can just renew the sensor. You don't have to program the serial number of the sensor into the body module. You can just put it in the tyre. The receiver on the car will pick it up. It will learn that corner and it will work without any laptop being needed. Easy way to tell if your model year is that one is if you cycle through on the dashboard and you get the graphic of a car with each individual corner tyre pressure. If you can see that, you've got a car which is plug and play. If you can't see that, you've just got the old system and it pings up a light. You haven't got the graphic of the car and which corner has got low pressure. Then unfortunately that design level does need the serial number coding to the body module. That's a real pain. Easiest thing to do on those cars is just disconnect the sensor. It then says about buying some online. Yeah, I've had a problem where I've bought some generic sensors where every time they fling out some data, they send out a number of signals, and that's called packets in the AMDS. And the AMDS was picking up that on each wave of packets being sent, there wasn't enough of them, and it triggered an error on that. So Once bitten, twice shy. I won't buy generic TPMS sensors again. I'll just buy the ones from the factory, which are the official Baru ones. This next question, it talks about removal of the parcel shell for a better exhaust. No, that must have been the essential things to do shortly after ownership. It's no more scientific than if you pull that partial shelf out. That partial shelf now allows noise to transfer into the cabin where previously it was restricting it. So in the interior, you just get the perception that the exhaust note is louder. Next question talks about the best laptop to use as diagnostic kits for these cars. I know there's a few out there, probably the Foxwell is the best, most well-known one. All of them are only ever going to be more intelligent fault code readers. They're not going to program certain modules or do things as AMDS could do. So really AMDS is the only option, but these more intelligent fault code readers will allow you to sort of hone in on a problem, which will help you diagnose what an issue is at home, rather than, you know, chasing your tail trying to fix something that isn't actually root cause. And that's because your low-level fault code checker wasn't really pointing you in the right direction. Maybe a more intelligent fault code checker is better at pointing you in the right direction that's wrong, but ultimately it's only AMDS that's really going to fix these cars properly. Then yeah, it goes on to say that if AMDS is the sort of one and only, then it's not that helpful for most owners across the pond. Yeah, any territory hasn't got a real pool of knowledge in its independents. Those independents have got the kit. That's going to be a real issue. In markets like the Far East, I just do not understand how the cars can be kept on the road when we see all the problems that we do here. And in the independent world, we fix things that dealers can't. So in those markets where there aren't independents, you'd have to say the dealers were less skillful than dealers in this territory. So how are those cars being kept on the road adequately? I really don't understand that. Next question touches on the same. It comes up lots, this question does. Aston kept AMDS very close. It's not like an Audi system that you can buy for a £5 from a disc off eBay, and then you get some generic pass-through box to talk to your laptop. Obviously the AMDS program is hard to come by, and the pass-through box to talk to the car through the laptop is also bespoke. So yeah, it's very difficult. So there is no system besides AMDS, and the only real alternative there is to get AMDS to the car instead of getting the car hundreds of miles across states to the dealer. But if the cost of flying someone in was more expensive than the cost of getting the car to the dealer, then it sort of doesn't make sense. It's a big problem that I don't see an easy answer for. Especially as time goes on, the problems with these cars become more electronic quirky. AMDS can never be accused of being sophisticated, but it's as good as it gets, and it certainly helps you hone in on what a problem is. Yeah, it's a problem which I only ever see getting worse instead of better. Next question is, I have a 2015 Aston Martin Vantage GT Sport Shift, and I keep getting the check engine light. Dealer keeps replacing the oxygen sensor, it keeps coming back on. Now I've had the car shudder installed a few times on me and it feels sluggish. I did the clutch test, checked there was no slip, which there wasn't. There was a vacuum seal leak, fixed it again. Sounds like you're getting repeated oxygen sensor fault codes. The key thing here is to understand if there is a problem with the oxygen sensor, which will be a short to ground or the heater circuit isn't working. This is a fault code that is telling you that fundamentally the oxygen sensor isn't functioning. Then there are fault codes like stuck rich, stuck lean, slow response. These are telling you that the oxygen sensor is working, but something is going wrong with the engine. It's not necessarily meaning that something is wrong with the oxygen sensor. So it's doing a detailed bit of detective work to figure that out. Is it the sensor or is it the signal that the sensor is being given? And then fixing whichever one. The easiest thing to do in this case would be to swap that oxygen sensor with another and see if the problem followed the oxygen sensor or it stayed with the channel the position it was already in. It's real basic process of elimination and mechanical. The whole industry, not just the dealer network, is using, mostly because the youth of today only really wants to solve a problem by Bluetoothing it from one computer to another instead of doing a bit of old-fashioned work. And the skill set that has got this mentality is only getting older and is only getting closer to retirement. And yeah, this problem, but hey, they're going to solve this by everything going electric, so don't worry about it. Of course, I say that tongue in cheek. Last comment that I've picked up on for this series is on the red car, that we did that mammoth project on 4.3 to 4.7 conversion, lightweight firewall twin plate clutch, exhaust manifolds and cats, big brake kit, Bilstein dampers, and then complete spray and some interior work. Comment on that was, yeah, but you won't get your investment back. A 4.3 will always be the older car. Of course it will. I think if you go to the level of that investment and upgrade, the maths just doesn't come into it at all. You're doing it because you want to, plain and simple. Hope you like that forum chat. Really helps us if you can comment on our videos, and I'll feature your question in a quick fire roundup of the future. We'll see you on the next forum chat.